In a turn of events that has fundamentally reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East, the world is witnessing the systematic dismantling of what was once considered a formidable regional power. Never in history has a modern military, such as the one maintained by Iran, possessed such an extensive array of conventional and unconventional assets, only to see them neutralized with such overwhelming speed. For decades, the Islamic Republic invested billions into a modern military infrastructure, establishing a blue water navy capable of harassing international shipping lanes, an air force that, while aging, remained a localized threat, and a sophisticated integrated air defense network designed to deny access to its sovereign airspace. Furthermore, the Iranian leadership had overseen the construction of massive, deep-buried bunker complexes and missile cities carved into the rugged interior mountains, intended to survive the most punishing of kinetic strikes. Yet, despite these decades of preparation and the perceived strength of their command structure, never has a modern military been so rapidly and historically obliterated and defeated in the face of a concentrated and unrestricted campaign. This collapse is being attributed not only to the technological superiority of the opposing forces, but to a fundamental shift in the American rules of engagement. Observers note that the current president of the United States has issued a clear and decisive mandate to the Pentagon. When American warfighters are sent into the theater of operations, their hands are to be completely untied. The directive is to move beyond mere containment or proportional response. The mission is now to close with and destroy the enemy as viciously as possible from the very first moment of contact. This policy of maximum kinetic application has replaced the strategic patience of previous administrations, signaling a new era where the full weight of the United States military is unleashed without the typical constraints that have defined 21st century conflicts. As this high-intensity campaign continues to unfold, the logistical and tactical engine of the U.S. military is operating at a peak performance level rarely seen outside of full-scale world wars. At Fort Bragg in North Carolina, the epicenter of American global response capability, the 82nd Airborne Division is currently in the midst of a massive mobilization effort to move troops and equipment to the Middle East. The focal point of this movement is a brigade consisting of approximately 3,000 soldiers, serving as the Division Ready Brigade. This unit is a core component of the Immediate Response Force, a high-readiness entity whose mission is to deploy anywhere in the world within 18 hours of receiving formal notification. The order has officially come in from the National Command Authority, and the 18-hour clock is running. Across the sprawling base, roughly 3,000 paratroopers are engaged in a choreographed frenzy of activity, packing gear that will sustain them in a high-threat environment. In the barracks and staging areas, the atmosphere is one of disciplined urgency. Soldiers are meticulously loading their rucksack packs with essential clothing, rations, and survival gear, ensuring every cubic inch of space is utilized. A critical component of this preparation involves the maintenance of personal weaponry. Soldiers are seen cleaning their M4 carbines, breaking the weapons down to their core components, and meticulously wiping the bolt carrier groups to remove any carbon or debris. Moving parts are oiled with precision, followed by reassembly and rigorous function checks to ensure that no mechanical failure occurs when the fighting begins. Simultaneously, machine gunners are preparing their heavy firepower, pulling long belts of ammunition from olive-drab crates and feeding the linked rounds through the feed trays of their weapons to verify smooth cycling and feeding. Spare barrels, cleaning kits, and extra ammunition cans are being staged as the division prepares to transition from a garrison state to a combat footing. By the first light of dawn, the objective is clear. These 3,000 soldiers must be on the aircraft and in the air, crossing the Atlantic to reinforce the front lines. While the paratroopers finish their individual preparations in the hangars, the airfield at Fort Bragg is a beehive of industrial and logistical activity. Ground crews are working around the clock on a fleet of C-17 Globemaster III aircraft lined up on the tarmac, their massive T-tails silhouetted against the night sky. On the cargo ramps, loadmasters are coordinating with forklift operators who are hauling heavy pallets of equipment and specialized military vehicles up the rear ramps and into the cavernous aircraft bays. The cargo manifest includes armored trucks, Humvees, and the highly lethal HIMARS rocket launcher vehicles, all of which are driven aboard and secured to the cargo deck with heavy-duty chains and tie-down straps to prevent any shifting during the long flight. In the cockpits, pilots and flight engineers are powering up the complex avionics suites, conducting exhaustive pre-flight checks. Navigation systems, radar arrays, and flight management computers are all tested and verified as the crews prepare for a mission that will take them across several time zones. Once the equipment is secured and the aircraft are cleared for flight, the order reaches the hangars for the soldiers to begin boarding. Carrying their heavy duffel bags and personal weapons, the paratroopers file out of the buildings and onto the airfield, moving toward the waiting C-17s. The soldiers are reminded of the gravity of the mission as they approach the ramps, being told to maintain focus as they prepare to hit the ground in a hostile environment. Inside the aircraft bays, the soldiers set their bags onto the integrated cargo roller systems, allowing a single loader to stack the equipment tightly, locking the load in place with cargo straps and tie-down cables. This ensures that the 14-hour flight to the Middle East remains stable. As the soldiers take their seats along the walls and in the center rows of the C-17, the mood is surprisingly loose. For these elite paratroopers, this is not their first deployment, and the routine of loading onto a strategic transport aircraft is as familiar as boarding a city bus. There are jokes, shared stories, and some take a final look at their phones before the devices are stowed for the duration of the flight. The finality of the departure is marked by the closing of the rear cargo ramp, which lifts and seals against the upper section of the door, pressurizing the cabin for high-altitude transit. The 4 Pratt & Whitney turbofan engines spool up with a deafening roar, and the C-17 taxis to the runway, accelerating down the strip before lifting off and climbing into the morning sky. 14 hours later, the first of these heavy transports touches down at a military airfield in Qatar, marking the beginning of a massive surge in local combat power. The rear ramp drops the moment the aircraft reaches the unloading area, and the offloading process begins with mechanical efficiency. HIMARS rocket launcher vehicles start their engines, unchained from the deck, and drive down the ramp straight onto the Qatari tarmac. These units do not linger at the airfield. They drive directly to their pre-assigned firing positions near the border, ready to provide long-range precision fires against any remaining Iranian assets. Armored vehicles and cargo pallets follow in quick succession as the turnaround for the aircraft is kept to an absolute minimum. In tandem with the arrival of the 82nd Airborne, the naval component of this operation is also ramping up its presence. On the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, which is currently operating in the region, Marines are loading into helicopters for their own deployment to Qatar. They board Sikorsky MH-60S Nighthawks and V-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft parked on the flight deck, carrying full combat gear, rifles, and body armor. These helicopters lift off in sequence, flying toward the Qatari coast to establish a rapid reaction capability. The goal is to concentrate a large ground force close enough to respond immediately should the situation escalate further, or should Iranian remnants attempt a counteroffensive. Upon landing in Qatar, the Marines move directly to a camp established by advance teams, where tents are already up, perimeters are secured, and communication lines are fully operational. While the ground forces solidify their positions, transport ships offshore are launching a different kind of power projection, the Amphibious Assault Vehicles, or AAV. These armored, tracked machines are designed for the seamless transition from sea to land. Propelled through the water by rear-mounted water jets at speeds of up to 8 knots, the AAVs carry up to 21 Marines and their gear, protected by a buoyant, sealed hull. Once they hit the shoreline, the water jets are deactivated, and the vehicles transition to their tracks, driving up the beach like conventional armored personnel carriers to provide heavy support to the arriving infantry. They are armed with turret-mounted machine guns and grenade launchers, making them a formidable presence on the beachhead. Supporting these AAVs are the Landing Craft Air Cushion Vehicles, or LCACs. These massive hovercraft, powered by enormous fans, can carry up to 60 tons of cargo, including heavy trucks and armored vehicles, at speeds exceeding 40 knots. They skim across the water's surface, creating a massive spray of seawater, and drive directly onto the sand without stopping. This allows for the rapid delivery of Humvees and cargo trucks from ship to shore in a matter of minutes. Multiple LCACs are making repeated runs, shuttling the necessary equipment to ensure the force in Qatar is fully mechanized and mobile. To protect this growing concentration of troops and equipment from asymmetrical threats, helicopter crews at the airfield in Qatar are maintaining a high state of readiness. Crews are seen loading belt ammunition into the feed trays of M240 machine guns mounted on the doors of their aircraft. Each belt is inspected link by link to prevent jams, and the guns are kept hot as the helicopters lift off to begin continuous patrol patterns. Their primary mission in the air is to scan the horizon and the ground for any signs of Iranian drones, specifically the Shahed models that have been used to harass regional targets. Door gunners are prepared to engage and destroy any drone that appears on their sensors or is spotted visually before it can threaten the base or the personnel on the ground. These patrols are a non-stop operation, with helicopters rotating through refueling and rearming cycles to ensure that the defensive perimeter is never left uncovered. The result of this massive, multi-branch mobilization is a total dominance of the theater, as the remnants of the Iranian military infrastructure are systematically identified and neutralized by a force that is now fully deployed, heavily armed, and operating under a mandate to end the conflict with absolute and crushing finality. The speed of the transition from the United States to the front lines in Qatar has served as a demonstration of global power projection, leaving little room for the adversary to regroup or mount a meaningful resistance. As the HIMARS take their positions and the Marines secure the coastal areas, the message from the American command is clear. The era of restricted warfare in this region has come to a definitive and violent conclusion, with the total obliteration of the opposing